Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health, Bass and Associates, and Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Lee and Helene Sapp Fieldhouse, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome once again to Consider This. It's an honor to be in our beautiful new entrance to the Fieldhouse at UNO, and it's an honor to have the guests that I present to you today. But first, consider this. Sounds like a great idea, convention center and sports arena in Omaha. Well, you can do more than just play sports in an arena, but also consider the fact that before you have a battle on a playground in an arena, you must have a battle in the unicameral. Well, but won't be too bloody a battle. My guests today are State Senator Dan Lynch of Omaha, who's agreed to carry this bill and shepherd it through the legislature. Welcome.
Thank you.
Also with us today is Jack Deasing of the, well, they call it MOXIE, and it took me a long time to figure out how to say this right, so I'm going to say it just to show I can. Metropolitan Omaha Convention Sports Entertainment Authority.
You did great, Carol.
Oh, that's
nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Also, Brad Ashford, who a former state senator, president of the Omaha Housing Authority, but in this context, he has been employed by the city.
I just carry the plays in.
You carry the plays.
And
Dan,
Dan's the quarterback and Jack's the coach. So.
Well, that works out well. Now that is teamwork. But
yes.
We have, for those of the people of Omaha and elsewhere who say just build it, a few things come first. Mainly to get a funding mechanism, rather unique certainly to Nebraska, through the legislature, and deal with the out-of-state biases, prejudices about Omaha and what we have. Dan, is this going okay?
This is doable, and I'm excited about it, and we just have to have it. We just can't wait much longer. As we all know, we don't have access to gambling dollars, and this program is not about that, whether it's good or bad that we don't have them. We know people don't want us to even talk about raising sales taxes or income taxes or anything else to provide something like this. So we found a very unique and doable funding mechanism called the throwback tax. Go into some detail with that. But it's revenues that are not being collected now by anybody at the state level or local level for the state or for local jurisdictions. And it would only exist when the project is completed and would result from those revenues developed from that project. In other words, it would not affect existing revenues to the state or cities or counties or anyone else, but it would allow those revenues developed as a result of this important project being completed, the monies to help offset the cost, at least as a partner, as a state should be as a partner in this project to help pay for, not all of it, but some part of this effort.
We'll get a little later to how much is paid by whom, but this is not too dissimilar to the old tax increment financing where you take a piece of property that was getting, you know, X number of dollars and then it's improved by some company or something, and the increase in revenues goes to help, you know, offset the cost of building the project. And so that's really what we're doing, is creating wealth in a sense and just you know, kind of taking some of that back for a while to pay off. Jack, how did the MOXIE group come to decide that the bond issue and the bonds and this would be a right mix?
Do we have 2-3 weeks to figure that out?
I'll bet.
Yeah,
I'll bet it was pretty complicated. But you're a man of very concise.
Right. Very
phrasing.
concise words. That's right. Well, this is a project that needs to be done for the state, not just this community. This is a project that's been studied ad nauseum for the last 15 years. This is a project that makes sense. This is a project that should be part of the image and economic activity of this metropolitan area and the state. We need to get everybody to understand that it is for the state. It's not just for this particular community. We need to make sure we can carry the vision forward and articulate the vision, because we need a vision for the state for a variety of things, and this is just part of the process. But the direct answer to your question relative to how did we come to this conclusion was we made a suggestion last year in our report our group did, about what we thought would be the best way to finance it at the time, and that wasn't received too well, and that was a half-cent sales tax. So we went back to the drawing board looking for another alternative in conjunction with the city and others, and this idea of a turnback tax, a throwback tax has been used in other places like Arkansas, and it seemed to make sense as part of the process because it doesn't really require you necessarily to pay more taxes, or the citizen in Grand Island. It's really the people that use it pay the extra taxes. Now I could use it, but I mean people from out of the city or out of the state. I think the most important thing, though, Carol, is that this whole process needs to be looked at something on a macro basis. But we would like to have everybody look at a macro basis, something that's good for everybody, and we need them to ask questions. But the fact is that if they've got a better idea of how to do it, we'd like to hear it. I mean, that's really the point. I mean, every time we come up with an idea, somebody goes, well, that's not a good idea. Well, other than Jack Deasing coming up with $275 million, maybe if somebody else had a better idea, we'd like to hear it. But right now, this combination of turnback financing, some bonds from the city, and some private funding seems to be the best alternative, and we would like people to help us find a way to do this, and hopefully with Dan's help and Brad's and everybody else's, we can pull this off, because
And a little prayer wouldn't hurt either.
no. And if we, the other thing I want to say is if we miss this opportunity, and so I care because I'm a longtime citizen of this state and I want to live here. I want to raise I like to see my kids stay here. We miss this opportunity. I care because somebody else is going to take advantage of it, and somebody else is right across the river, and people say they don't care. Well, they should care in this state in general. And so what we hope is that we can get everybody to pull together. We're close. Dan's close. He's working real hard, and to realize that there are some long-term benefits for everybody.
Well, Brad, you worked on shepherding bills through the legislature before as a state senator. What makes this one unique to your experience?
Well, it is. First of all, there's a significant community effort on this bill. We have the support of first of all, most of the Omaha, if not all, the Omaha delegation in the legislature. Really, and that's difficult to do. Dan has really been able to coalesce all of the Omaha people together on this thing in the legislature, and that is. It may seem like that should happen more often, but it doesn't. I mean, Omaha senators disagree too, and on this issue they've come together. That's significantly different. Also, the other difference, and Dan alluded to it and Jack did too, is that we do have support from senators outside of the Omaha area. Ed Schrock from Phelps County has signed on to the bill, and Jenny Robach from Columbus, and we have support from other senators from across the state, and that's unique. It very rarely happens on a bill like this where you have support across the state. So that makes it does make it significantly different. Some of the other things we did in the past are in the past, and they're really not necessarily that instructive. This is really a great effort, and this year, different from last year, there is a coming together, and it's been significant.
Well, the bill is in the Revenue Committee, which holds its fate right now, and I'm sure that there are senators that are concerned if it's a viable bill, if it's a good bill for the state of Nebraska, and there are those that are concerned about. There's still always that feeling that Omaha gets. I mean, whether it's justified or not, it exists. It's a reality. This bill can actually be workable for not every community, certainly in the state, but certain communities or clusters of communities. Isn't that right? So I mean, it's not just an Omaha bill.
Yeah.
It's written purposefully to provide for other communities than the Omaha area to access this sort of funding, to do those kinds of projects that up to now they might not be able to do, but could in fact draw folks into their community for conventions and functions, whatever else it might be, that could be important help as far as they're concerned. And I appreciate Jack's comments about this being a Nebraska project. When we had our hearing, there were a few people from Omaha there, and that was on purpose as well. because we didn't want to leave the impression that this very important piece of legislation dealing with the convention center and arena was in fact just an Omaha thing at all. And so I'm grateful for the cooperation from the city to allow us to conduct the hearing as we did. And I think that brought home to the committee the fact that we were interested in the good of the state, not just building another building in Omaha. And it's important we do it. If we don't do it, Jack's right. With the kind of money that can be available to people who have access to gambling dollars, they can beat it at us. I'm convinced if we can get this on the road this year,
I don't think there's
it'll
any
be too
question
late.
that the fear is that there is money right across the river, and if we don't
Yeah.
do it, it will be done in the proximity, and then we'll lose out on any gain. The one thing that concerns me, it doesn't even really concern me, I'm unclear about it, is that if we are able to get this throwback financing, and if how long, we're in a great economy right now, and maybe the best we'll see in a while. How long is this going to be Omaha's responsibility to pay for it? And will these things never support themselves, but there is a concern that we might be saddling ourselves with something that we can't live comfortably with. Should things get a little leaner?
I'm not worried. You guys worried?
No,
Oh, they're not worried.
Omaha can
Well,
do anything.
if
but-
someone asked
Well,
that was
you
a
know,
lot more important than I, what answer would you give them?
Speaking just from a business person's perspective, I'm in the insurance industry, and everybody goes, well, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and things are going to get worse. And frankly, I think we're by the days of things getting worse. You look at the economy in the United States, let alone Nebraska. When was the last time Nebraska had a blip, down 10%? So Nebraska's always up 2 or 3%. It's just the way the economy is. We don't have the 10, 15% blips. So what I see, frankly, is in the vision I would see is that I don't see anything other than that continuing. I mean, the economy's good in this state. Everybody knows it. Sure, we have some farm issues here and there. We always get through it. Nebraska always gets through it. We always have. And if we were able to do something like this, I think it would add a further blip up. So that what you're looking at here, in a fashion, Carol, that's a good question. If this passes in the fashion that we're talking about it now, what you're talking about is certainly the city would issue some obligation bonds that would, but that would some would be additional, take the place of others. There'd be some private financing, and then you'd have some incremental increases in taxes paying this thing off for a period of time. And if you look at any city that's done this, just take the Quad Cities. I mean, there's something that's somewhat similar that has been the single greatest factor, the mark over there for the economic impact of their community has been the building of an arena, and it's growing at leaps and bounds, the people that are coming there. I think we have to look at it as the glass is half full, not half empty. And if we can get everybody to look at it that way and realize that really this is the kind of thing you got to have vision to go forward instead of always looking back. And I don't have any problem being conservative, because I'm very conservative, but at some point in time, you need to take the conservative, you need to say, we can move forward and do this. So what I say is, frankly, our economy is going forward. It always has. I think it will affect, I think it'll go forward faster, because not only what you'll see is the economic impact of the building of this facility, the annual economic impact of running it, but you're going to see some people staying here. You're going to see some business cropping up around it, some steakhouse, some restaurants that aren't here in town now coming in, some hotels being built that aren't here.
The thing that occurs to me as someone who has interviewed a lot of people over the years and talked about issues, everything from property tax relief to redevelopment, is the riverfront. I mean, the whole aspect of the fear that the flight west, and it's not even a flight, just the expansion, that's a fairer term, will leave the inner city and the corridor along the river, at worst blighted, and at best, just standing still. And we all know in this day and age, if you stand still, you fall behind. What do you really, honestly, not just, pie in the sky, what do you honestly think that it means, Jack, Brad, and you're from Omaha?
Please do.
Conventions. We are capped off in a sense in the state of Nebraska at how big a convention we can draw in the Omaha
Yeah, the
area.
Civic Auditorium is really packed to the gills already.
Yeah, and one of the biggest conventions we have in the state is the Nebraska Association of County Officials, and they do most of their business out on 72nd and Mercy, which is fine. What's really exciting about this particular project is we won't necessarily be competing with those already established activities in the state or in any other part of the state as well. What we want to compete with this project is Kansas City. We want to compete with Denver. We want to compete with other communities closer to us where they have conventions from anywhere from 1,500 to up to 4,500 people. And we can do it with this project. And what we have is one of the primary advantages is you can get off the plane and drive for 5 minutes and spend no more than $10 and be there. If you're in Denver or if you're in Kansas City or somewhere else, you spend an hour and a half, and $45 or $50 to even get to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's
before
just before you start.
Yeah.
Before you start spending
And
other money.
and that's why the convention center itself will, in fact, develop the kind of things necessary to support that kind of convention business.
You know, we have
and
done
that's an untapped market for Nebraska, not just Omaha, but for Nebraska.
We had Dan Smithy here 2 weeks ago. We were talking about. I wasn't aware, and I try to be a little aware of how competitive we are with Kansas City, who I thought had so many more flights in and out, and the types of flights that we have. I mean, we really have, besides that wonderful crossing interstates, that I didn't know that our air flight travel in and out, and that's kind of a key too. The timing.
Well, also, we
of
have
that.
Senator Kerry has been instrumental in the development of the riverfront and bringing in federal dollars to develop the riverfront. So the timing is right. You have this influx of federal dollars, the potential for increasing the size of the Omaha airport, the location of Omaha between Interstate 29 and 80. It's a very significant location by the river. So the other thing on the economic shifts and how that affects this kind of business is an interesting question, but Little Rock, which is an interesting analogy to Omaha, about the same size, slightly smaller. Their convention center is 17, 18 years old. They've used the same kind of financing through a number of different economic shifts in the last 18 to 20 years. Their business has gone up every year, and the turnback tax has increased every year. So that's a good example of a city like ours that has done it on the river, developed riverfront facilities, and again, if we do this, we'll beat any of these people because we are better at it once we do it. The College World Series is a great example of that. So if we can, Jack obviously has been running for
He knows
years.
something.
Right, but I mean, but it's a good point because people will come to Omaha if the events are here.
I was at the Nebraska Land Statehood Days, gave an award to College World Series last weekend, and I was there receiving it. One of the things I said to everybody is that the College World Series is not just Omaha. I mean, this is good for the state. The image that it helps build, the notoriety we get, the television exposure, people know it's in Nebraska. The same thing's true with what we're talking about here. Plus, every one of these that's been successful, and whether it's in Omaha or Grand Island or Superior, is done in the downtown complex, which are the image centers of the communities. And it happens to make a heck of a lot of sense here because we do have the airport, which is one of the best around. We have a lot of other entertainment going all the way out to Mahoney State Park and other things around here, the zoo and so forth.
Yeah, if you have the time to sort of.
Yeah, so this makes so much sense, and this is something this state and this city can do. See, we can build a convention center arena. Sometimes we'd love to be able to bring Mercedes-Benz and all these other people in here. But there's some things that we want to try to do, and we want to reach out, but be a lot more difficult than others for economic development for the state as well as the community. This can be done, and this is something we can do. And if you go around, which we did, Brad and our group, to Portland, Spokane, Indianapolis, New Orleans, Quad Cities, these others, everybody will tell you they went through the same process, 4 or 5 years, had to get through the legislature, had to convince whomever that it was but when they did it, every one of them has worked. It's been a benefit for the community and the state. It's been good for everybody.
I don't want to be a naysayer, I really don't, but are there cities where they've done this and it has kind of gone in the drink?
It's hard to find one. I mean, we've
I don't know of any.
we've looked at almost all of them, and And the other thing is they continue to be built. There's the word out is, well, you know, convention centers don't pay for themselves, or they really don't bring conventions, or how many conventions could there possibly be? As a matter of fact, the convention business every year increases. Omaha is in a unique position with its healthcare facilities. The healthcare area is has the largest increase in convention business now in the country. We would
They have to have them to keep up.
There's so many changes, but in any event, that's one. There's the insurance industry and the ag industry. We are just in a good position. The other thing is that we have leaders in our community in a variety of different organizations across the country that go through the chairs, and they get up to the point where they are chairperson or president of an organization, and it's their choice to bring a convention to their town, and we don't have the place to bring the conventions here. And Dan's a good example of that, because he was high up in the national county organization, and at some point, when you got to say, we want to bring these things, we want to show Omaha off, but what's amazing, there's not one single facility in this state that can hold a reasonably sized regional or national convention. We're the only state that I know of, at least in this area, that has that problem. So,
Well, we have a good idea about what size of conventions and meetings we can compete for. No, obviously we're not going to be able to compete with New York and Los Angeles, but that would be impractical and unreasonable for a community like ours to try to compete with something like that.
So you think you've got a right size idea?
This just didn't happen. There are people like these folks and a lot of others that, Moxie and others have tried to, for years, figure out what is the kind of convention, what is the size of convention or meeting group that we can, in fact, attract and, in fact, accommodate, and what would we need to do that. That's what this project and this concept is all about.
Let's get back to the legislation that you want to
Okay.
get through. Is there, the way it's written, I mean, you have to get permission, A, to sort of qualify
Yes.
for this money, and then you have to, and I haven't seen the bill, but I've seen things about it, you have to then get permission to stay qualified.
Right. In other words, there will be people at the state level, good people, a governor, the treasurer, and now the
state investment
the
chairman
state
of the state investment
chairman
office.
of the State Investment Council, who will be a committee of three, that any community who thinks they qualify based on the language of the law, and that's almost everybody in the state, would have to appear before. They would appear before these three people, lay out their plan, prove that in fact it's an unmet need, prove that in fact it's a doable project, and most importantly, prove that in fact by using the throwback tax or whatever we call it, it can in fact pay for itself, and in fact with the cooperation of the community that's requesting the project, with the help of some private funds in some cases, not all probably, that it can work. And
Does it
so
have
has
to
to
be
go through
renewed
that.
then
Oh no,
after?
well once it's approved, then those three people, will, with the cooperation of the state, would enter into a contract with that community, would identify what that need is, spell out in a form of a contract that would have to be budgeted for every year, and then the taxes would be collected by the state, and based on that agreement and contract that the three-person committee signed with the community, be able to return those revenues back to the community for the purpose of meeting its convention center and arena needs
So would that go on
every year.
every year, in
Yeah, you don't have-
perpetuity?
Well,
or
until the
is
bonds
it
are paid off.
Until the bonds are paid off, and then, so there is that guarantee, because that kind of worried me. I thought, well, if we have to come up sort of at the wherever the winds of politics and we're going, that's not a concern if we qualify in the first place.
Yeah, we even have language in there now with some of the latest rewrites that offers an opportunity to communities who are afraid that other communities might unfairly compete for what they think is theirs. It even has protection language as it involves that as well. So I'm excited about this, and we got to get it. It's crazy. I know some people don't like gambling. I think you're going to go to hell if you do it and all that business. And just all I'm telling you folks, okay, if that's what you think, that's fine. However you think about gambling, think it. All I can tell you is, if you don't want to, if you want to have a convention center and you don't like gambling, then support this project. We can do this without gambling money. We could have done it without gambling money even if we started gambling on our own before Council Bluffs started. The way this funding mechanism is developed is in fact very possible and doable, and we have to get started on it.
And one other thing I would add, because I don't know that it's clear either, is that this bill is really and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's for funding of the construction, not for the
Right.
day-to-day operations.
Right.
So, and I go back to the Mark in the Quad Cities. When they built that, the city put away like 400,000 or some 400 or 500,000 to take care of the shortfall. There has never been a shortfall in that facilities since the first year. And the first year wasn't even a shortfall. Every year it is either broke even or had a positive cash flow based upon the utilization of the facility. So, I mean, our approach is this is going to work. Our group is going to make it work. I say our group. One of the things that's part of this whole process is that we've recommended strongly, because that's what's happening in every other state, that an independent authority be created to oversee the operation of this facility for all kinds of reasons, but not the least of which is to keep it out of the political.
Like the airport authority.
Right, very much like the airport authority, which, by the way, does a pretty good job of.
They do a
running.
darn decent job.
Right, they
Let me
do.
ask you this though, Jack, are you confident that if this passes, that the private money in the percentage that you've kind of already laid out will be there, and that the combination of retired bonds and new bonds that we might have to take out, that the scenario you've painted out is the one we're going to stick with, pretty much? It's feasible, it's reasonable.
Well, you know, the first thing that's got to happen is that the legislature's got to get out of the revenue committee and it's got to be debated. So
Okay, let's
assume
give it
that
that,
happens.
yeah.
Let's assume that happens. I would say the rest of it is going to happen.
How much are we talking about in private money?
Well, based upon various things you do, 75 million, but you have to realize that there are all kinds of things like naming rights, like, you know, other things you sell for the arena. Pepsi just paid $20 million over 20 years for naming rights to a facility in one of these cities. I don't remember which one at the moment. Well, I mean, I'm not suggesting that necessarily amount would happen here because it's not the same kind of facility, but those are the kinds of things that are a distinct possibility.
I'm thinking of all the Nebraska businesses. Can you see the Vice Grip,
Right.
you know, arena? I mean,
I mean, there are.
Dorothy Lynch salad bleachers.
well, you just like the Lynch name.
I tell you what we would like. We would
I think
like
that would be
the
a good idea, actually.
opportunity to prove to the citizens of the state and legislators and everybody else that this can be done. They just have to give us the opportunity to actually prove to the citizens of this community that it can be done, because there are some things that we would want the citizens around here to vote on, and we're not even there yet. But assuming that we can get there, yes. And not only that, but I'm also convinced that we would have more event days than everybody thinks we would be utilized. And so forth.
Now,
Sorry.
well, you know, when I go like this, I get nervous because
Yeah.
the music starts.
I understand.
I want to thank Senator Dan Lynch, Jack Deasing, and Brett Ashford for being with us, and we'll keep an eye on that revenue committee in the
Okay.
days to come.
Thank you very much, Carol.
Just build it and they will come.
There you go.
One convinced man, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks. Good job.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health and Bass & Associates.